Hi guys. I'm just hopping on real quick for Colby. He's just getting everything ready and then he'll be on, okay?
Sounds good. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks for your patience. We were last minute technical difficulties trying to get some things downloaded. Samantha, are you going to hang on in case I run into an issue with, because technology is not my thing. Okay. How's everybody doing today? I can say that I would greatly appreciate and love it if everybody would be willing to turn their cameras on. It's much better as an instructor to be able to see people's faces and reactions and know if you've got questions, if you're engaged and I can see you. So if you don't mind, I appreciate it. All right. So let's see here. Negotiate.
Mine's on the brink right now, blinking out here.
No worries. I believe that there was a link sent out to a video. Did everybody have a chance to watch that? And full disclosure, confession time, I did not.
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, in any case, this is Negotiate the Deal as part of the Ignite series. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint and share my screen. We're going to follow that. If any of you have taken any classes that I've instructed in the past, you'll know that I kind of loosely follow those things. I like to draw more on my experience in the business. 25 years now. Actually, this is my 25th year in real estate. Been with 3 different companies. Keller Williams is the longest one. I've been here since 2006. I was with a little mom and pop when I first started Cobblestone Realty in Westchester, and I was a Remax guy for about 5 years in between. So I like to kind of just draw on real world experiences and negotiating subjects. I do have the MCNE certification. It was a Master Certified Negotiation Expert. If you ever have a chance to take the CNE classes, I highly recommend it, and they do count as part of your continuing ed towards your licensing requirements. So highly recommend them, those classes, if you ever get a chance to take them. So any questions about things before we get started? Any topics that you want me to try and make sure we touch on here today?
Just the instructor, when I watched the video, she mentioned, she like asked a couple of questions, but she didn't answer them. She said it's like a homework or something for us. I would
Okay.
like to take an advice from you, what you answer in that situation. And the question was, if the listing agent get back to you and said your offer is low, the price is low, what's the answer will be?
So you're the buyer agent in that scenario, and you've made an offer, and the listing agent comes back and says the seller feels the offer is too low.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. We would absolutely welcome a counter offer. Tell us what's really important. Is it just about price, or is there other terms that are that the seller is desiring? And if they're willing to enter into a conversation with us, we'd love to hear what they're looking for. Always trying to elicit some kind of action from the other side of the negotiation. It's not an opponent. That's the one key thing. If I can teach anybody anything about negotiating, the thing that I think is the absolute most important thing when it comes to negotiation is the style and approach that you have to negotiation. And I am a big believer that collaborative approach to negotiation is always more successful than what we classify as other two. The other two being competitive. Competitive negotiator typically feels like they only win if they get somebody to lose something. And I don't think that's any way to go through life or to approach a negotiation. A collaborative negotiator is somebody who wants everybody to win. You know, just like in our kind of Kellerisms, we have win-win as part of our Y4C54XJYs. It's important. Everybody needs to win, and in this market, that's even more important. It's so difficult out there right now for buyers agents. And for buyers, people are getting their butts kicked left and right trying to make offers, and it's not uncommon to hear someone say, "I've made offers on 8 different houses and we still didn't get one." So to find some kind of a win, even when there's a loss, and what I mean by that is, as a listing agent, I encourage you to, when you have a multiple offer situation, obviously only one is going to come to terms. Really important to be communicative with the other agents that did not get it and give them some feedback they can use to go back to their clients. Not just they chose another offer or another offer was higher. Kaui, my partner, sent out a great email the other day, or she made a post the other day about an email template that we're going to start to use for our listings. And it without giving away any of the terms of the accepted offer, it gives enough feedback to say there were X amount of offers. There were X amount of offers that were above the asking price. There were X amount of offers that waived all contingencies, including financing or just waived inspections. It just gives a buyer's agent who is trying to get a house for their clients some information to be able to go back and look like an authority, or look like they truly are representing that buyer, to explain, hey, look, here's why we didn't get it. They accepted one that did this and we didn't do that. Now, it not necessarily is saying that it's going to teach that or give that agent the ability to recommend to any of those strategies, but it softens it a bit more, and it takes away the question in the buyer's mind of, do I have the right agent? Are they really, going to bat for me and trying to get me this house? And it makes it more about the fact that there were other terms that were just simply better. So that's a win scenario, even when a buyer loses. And the other type of negotiator is one that's what we call a compliant negotiator. We probably have all experienced this before, but somebody that you may be negotiating with or conversation with, I basically call them yes people. They'll say yes to everything. They'll agree to it, whether they want to agree to it or not, whether they feel like that's what they wanted, they didn't want, they'll say yes to it. That's really the most dangerous ones, especially if they're a client, because if a client says yes to something they really didn't want to say yes to, just because their style, their personality is a compliant approach to negotiating, that's when you get the second guesses. That's when you get buyer's remorse. That's when you get the lawsuits. Basically, he made me say yes to this, or that kind of thing. You got to be very careful about compliant negotiators. So collaboration is the key. So let's see if I can pull up this. Did that help answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
Whoops.
Are you question?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that, say, okay, we're finding that X number of people are offers have waived the inspections or whatever, and then you say, that might be something we want to consider, then do you have to worry about liability on your end if they say, oh yeah, let's just waive the inspections, and then they find something later, or is it like, how liable are we in that scenario? Because obviously that's something that's going on a lot right now.
Yes. And yes, we are liable. And yes, be very, very careful with that. It is a good idea, and Dave Ash, the broker, I'm sure will support this statement, that there is a good idea when you are waiving, or a buyer is waiving inspections, it's a good idea to have them sign an acknowledgement that they are choosing to do so. That it's not something that, what you don't want is them coming back and saying, the only way you told us, the only way we get this is we do this, now we found this, now it's your problem. And it's not to say that it won't necessarily protect you. I think it's more important to be very communicative up front during that process. Looking at the house very closely. I've been in the business long enough that I can go into a house and I can pretty much tell you what a home inspector is going to find when I do a walkthrough within 10 minutes. But knowing, like looking at age of systems, and I'm famous for walking through a house and looking at stuff, and my clients will all tell you this. That I did have that happen yesterday. I'm showing a house and I said, oh look, the hot water heater is 12 years old, and my client goes, yep, it's going to die the day after settlement, right? So I always, it's just sort of part of my scripts when I'm going through houses. If I see something that I know may be working fine now, but as at or past its expected typical life, I set expectations before they even make an offer on the house. Expectations that is something that will die right after you buy it. Like you'll leave settlement, you'll come home and the basement's flooded because the hot water heater died. And setting expectations so that they don't have that happen. They don't 2 months in, 6 months in, the hot water heater dies, and now they're like, well, we didn't think that, we thought it would last a lot longer. So what I'm getting at is setting expectations with buyers and understanding. I mean, especially in this time where we're getting some really crazy kind of numbers with people offering way more than what properties are listed for. We just sold one the other day. It was $60,000 over the asking price, and we were representing the buyer. If buyers are willing,
one of the agents, one of the buyer's agent. I don't know if you're talking about the same house. Is it in Youngstown?
No, in Chester Springs.
But it's the same amount raised on the price.
We just bought one for 70,000 over 75.
Yeah, and I'm hearing numbers like 100, 150,000 over asking price out there. It's crazy. So look, the reality is if someone's willing to go 20,000, 30,000 over asking price, it's pretty unlikely that you walk through a house before they make an offer and you don't see something that's going to cost $20,000 to fix. You don't see that all the windows are fogging, you got to replace all the windows in the house. You don't see that the roof is 35 years old and is going to need a new roof. The HVAC system is 40 years old and it's going to need a new one. So look, if they're willing to spend that money, just set expectations with, you're going to find stuff in every house, even new construction, you'll find stuff on an inspection. Set expectations that once they move in, they're going to start, and it's home ownership now, it's maintenance, they're going to have expenses associated with it. You were willing to offer $40,000, $50,000 over the asking price. So you can't come back and get upset over a $2,000 hot water heater. So it's really about setting expectations as far as waiving inspections. And I'd be careful with it. It all depends on the buyer too, their financial position, to be able to deal with repairs that they weren't expecting, their ability, just the way they handle, is everything a problem in there? Is everything the sky is falling? Because that's the buyer you want to be careful about waiving inspections. Or is it go with the flow? Well, it's I own the home now, so I got to deal with it. So, I need to do this in order to get it. So if this is the worst that happens to me, no big deal. So just set those expectations.
Colby, could you use the seller disclosure form to help guide through some of those conversations?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And especially from a standpoint of like age of systems. If we're looking at a house that, and also just think about relative age of a house. I was showing houses yesterday and every single house was built between 91 and 95. Well, every house is built between 91 and 95. If it doesn't have a new roof, it's coming real soon. If it doesn't have a new HVAC, if it isn't on the third HVAC system, it's coming real soon. You just know what the big ticket items are and things that are going to need to be done, and have that conversation ahead of time before they make an offer. So let me see if I know how to do this. Share my screen, and I want to share this. Okay, can everybody see that starting out the cover for Ignite?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so negotiate the deal is where we are. We kind of talked about that. We're not doing the lead generation part of the Ignite, we're just doing the class. So let me just get down here so negotiation. Bargaining, give and take, process seeking to reach an agreement. If you're not on mute, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself out, that would be great. This video, does anybody know negotiation part 11 10-minute video? Was that the one that Samantha sent out for people to watch ahead of time? Does anybody have a clue on that?
The one they sent us on the email, it was like an hour. It was the whole class.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, all right. Let's take a quick look at this and see if I can figure out how to do that. So I'm going to. Hey, Samantha. Can you? Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm really good at talking with people and negotiating things, but when it comes to technology, I'll let Colby handle it all. Let me see. Okay, here we go. All right. We got the video up now, everybody.
Hi, I'm Josh Anderson from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Keller Williams since 2006. 2014,
Yeah,
we did about 200 transactions for about $60 million in volume. I grew up on a farm, so I've always seen my dad negotiating land and cows and horses, being the youngest of four, and I'm trading and negotiating with others all growing up. So I've kind of done it all the time. Some people are certainly gravitate toward it and are naturally better at it than others. But I think that negotiation can definitely be learned. I think there's a lot of skills that go into being a great negotiator. I think it's learning your client. Instead of kind of assuming that you know what's important to them, really asking a lot of questions and letting them tell you what they need or want, and then speaking to the other agent and finding out what's most important to their client. And there's some agents that just don't give any. When I have an agent that I'm dealing with that's very tight-lipped, I just keep asking questions, and they give me information that they might not have otherwise given, whether it's a divorce or a death, or it's just they got relocated to some other city. And I think if you're really listening and being intentional and purposeful about listening, you'll find out exactly what's important to them or what they have to have. In certain situations, you have to be creative. We're always looking for that next little tip to help our clients out and win the deals. One of the techniques that we've used a lot that's worked well for us is the escalation clause. For example, if the property is listed at $250,000, we might go in at $250,000 with strong terms, and in special stipulations, we might put in there that we're willing to beat the next best documented offer by $1,000 up to $263,000. And the best offer might be $261,000, so we end up getting it for $262,000. From a client standpoint, be willing to have a real conversation with your clients. It's not us just being realtors for them. It's us consulting and advising and really telling them, if you really want this property, here's what you have to do to get it. Everybody's got a different way of how they would negotiate. And networking with other Keller Williams agents around the country, the more you hear it, the more ideas you get. And then you end up gearing it towards you and what you think is going to work best for you and your clients. A lot of it comes down to experience. And I think the more deals you do, the more comfortable you get with it. If you can step back from every transaction and learn something, you're going to get really good over time.
Okay. All right, so a couple of things I picked up there. One of the most important thing is every negotiation, in my opinion, every negotiation starts with data collection. The more information you can gather, the more success you're going to have in negotiation. Lots and lots of questions. You know, it's very rare that I will ever present an offer for a buyer and or present an offer to a seller without having, in most cases, multiple conversations with the other agent. I want to find out lots of information from a buyer's side. You want to find out what's important to the seller. And there's nothing wrong with asking that. You know, help me understand what's important to the seller. Is there a particular date that they're trying to hit for their settlement date? And if they say, no, they're totally flexible. Okay, well, would they could they settle next week, or they want to settle in a year? You know, everybody has an idea of when they want to settle, is the bottom line. And that may also tell you what their situation is too, because the answer might come back, well, he starts his new job in Virginia on the 15th. So they need to be out before then. You know, more information you have, the better, because if you can give as many, provide as many of the terms that are going to be desirable to the other side, then you got a better chance of getting some things that are going to be desirable, that are important to your side of things. And listening to what those questions, answers to those questions really are, is a very important thing he touched on there. So let me just pop back here to our slideshow. Sorry, guys, hang in there with me. Why can't I find that? There we go. Okay, back to the handbook. Not gonna do the calls. Okay, negotiating tips, common points of negotiation. So obviously price is what is a very common point of negotiation. It's probably one of the most important ones. But as important are all the other terms. You know, we can get an offer on one of our listings and it's, you know, $30,000 over the next highest offer. But if it has terms that that are going to be prohibitive to getting us to closing, it may not be the best, strongest offer for the seller to accept. I tell all of our seller clients that my job when it comes to the negotiation side of things is when we get an offer on the property, I'm going to vet that offer out fully before I even present it to a seller, meaning I'm going to have conversation with the other agent. I'm going to, if it's contingent upon financing, I'm going to have a conversation with the lender that gave the pre-approval. And I can tell you exactly how that goes. And this is, I think, kind of a good, simple way to get some information about the buyer as far as their strength, because our job, like we explained to sellers, is to identify any potential risk from the time you sign that contract to the time of settlement, and try and minimize that risk by negotiating terms that are going to reduce the amount of risk that you have in getting to settlement. So when we get an offer in and it's contingent upon financing, I will call the lender and I simply say, hey, it's Colby Martin with Keller Williams Real Estate. Received an offer on one of our listings and there's a pre-approval attached from you for buyer's names. And I just stop talking because I want to see what the reaction is going to be. I want to see, is that lender going to go, John and Mary Smith, who? Oh yeah, you know, I talked to them like a year ago. I didn't know they were out looking to buy a house. Or are they going to say, oh, John and Mary Smith, you know what? This will be the fourth mortgage I've done for them over the years. I've done mortgages for their whole family. I know them all. They're great credit, really good job, good debt to income ratios. And I want to see what the reaction is. Ultimately, what I'm hoping to hear is that, yeah, we've already underwritten them. They are approved. We just need to plug a house in and then we'll have our final approval and be able to go to settlement. That's where I'm hoping that we're going to be starting from. But you always want to get that input from the lender as to where they stand in the process. You know, lenders tend to just become very clean very quickly. And it's not a negative thing. It's really actually a really positive thing. You know, if they had some credit struggles they're working on, well, we still gotta get through, you know, get their credit score up a few more points before they really are going to get approved. Or if they say, you know what, they got an 850 credit score, they'll quickly tell you those things. So it's a really important part of checking out the terms, especially when it comes to financing. And feel free to stop me along the way if you guys have questions as we're going through this, or anything that you are experiencing that you need to that you want to talk through. So talking about the 3 Ps approach: prepare, present, and position. Prepare is what I was really starting at here. It's gathering information. The more information you have, the more successful you can be, the more anchored you can be in any position that you want to try and establish in your negotiation. So really understand, you know, everyone's whys as to, you know, if they have a particular settlement date, don't just say, okay, say, well, what is it about that date that's important to them? You know, they've already bought a house and we need to settle by them because they need the money from this house. You know, understand the whys so that you can position your presentation, your terms of your offer correctly. Presenting the offer, I think, is really, really important from a buyer agent standpoint, especially in this marketplace right now, this market that we're in right now. And it doesn't matter what market we're in. First and foremost, as a buyer's agent, when you're presenting an offer, be thorough, have everything complete. Don't send an offer to a listing agent, then with a note that says, I'm waiting on a BFI, I'm waiting on the seller's disclosure, I still owe you this, I still owe you that. I have a set way that I present every 99% of offers for buyers that we present, and it is a template with an email, and it is very straightforward and simple. The subject line says offer to purchase and the address, so that hopefully it gets the listing agent's attention right away. And it simply says, attached, please find our client's offer to purchase 123 Main Street. Here's a list of the terms. Here's an outline of the terms and list of attachments. And then I do a bold bullet point list of the terms, starting with price, settlement date, any contingencies. I explain them as far as if we have due diligence for inspections and so forth. Explain what they are, if we're doing a deductible on inspections, which I think is a smart way to limit the risk, but still give some protection for keeping inspections in transaction if you feel the property really should get inspected. And then I put a list of attachments in the order that they're attached. And it doesn't come through with the agreement of sale and the pre-approval and the BFI as icons. And then, the next, the seller's disclosure as the full document. I like it really neat and orderly. Literally, I have had listing agents say to me, oh yeah, everything was in order, so I just forwarded it over to the seller. So literally what I just accomplished there is I'm having an indirect conversation with the seller. They're seeing how organized I am, how thorough it is. They see exactly what the terms are very quickly and easily and can understand it. There's nothing better as a listing agent than getting a full, complete offer over that is outlined and framed that way, especially in the market we're in right now where we're getting multiple offers. What I don't want to have to do, if I can help it, is sift through a dozen offers and try and figure out what the terms are by reading every single page of the agreement of sale. I'd much rather have it in an outline that I can pop in and then just open up the agreement of sale and just confirm those things are there before any final terms are agreed to.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
So when it asks for, I do everything that you just said just because I'm a very detailed person, but the only thing that I've never sent with my offer, and thank goodness most of my offers have been accepted, is the copy of the check. So when they ask for that, I've just never done it because you don't even need to cut that until 5 days after your offer is accepted. So what do you...
Well, keep in mind that everything is negotiable and that 5 days is a negotiable item. I'm making a habit now of two things when it comes to deposits. One, not dealing with two deposits. And so if someone presents an offer with two deposits, we're automatically recommending to our sellers that we go back and ask to make that one deposit. And we're asking for it within 2 days. We want it quickly. It used to be that the check had to be delivered with the agreement of sale. And, dating ourselves here, how long I've been in the business, but prior to having electronic signatures and software to do contracts and so forth, we would literally have to physically write in carbon copy papers and collect the check and drive it over to the listing agent's either their office or their house, or agree to meet them at a Starbucks or somewhere to get an offer presented. So this 5-day period for checks is causing some problems in this market because people it's 5 days they can sit and think about it, and they're having some remorse. And if they have buyer's remorse and they want to back out, the listing agent is not holding any escrow funds to hold them accountable.
So when a listing agent is requiring you to show a picture of the check, I mean, doesn't it have to be a bank certified check? So are they going out to the bank, getting the check made for something that they might not even get their offer accepted?
No, the certified check is only required if the settlement is less than 30 days from when the deposit is due. If it's beyond 30 days, then it can be a personal check. And even if it's a fast settlement, because I do a lot of investor representation, and my investors will we sometimes settle within 8 to 10 days. When we send it over, I'll have them just write a personal check out and take a picture of it and email it or text it over to me, and I just include that with the offer. And that's the simplest way you do it. Just have them write it out, take a picture, text it to you, and then add that as an attachment to the offer.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe I'm missing something, but how is that valuable? Like, you know what I mean? You're like, you could write whatever you want on there.
That's
Yes.
literally why
Just
I've never
there's the
sent
money
it
in the
because it's,
account.
yeah.
So
Just,
I don't,
yep,
I
it's,
don't really
it's,
understand.
yeah, it's valuable from a commitment standpoint. If they're arguing about writing out a check, how committed are they really to buying this house?
Mhm. But in theory, then a certified check would be way better.
Well, yeah, certainly it would, but at the same time, you get a certified check and you're in a multiple offer situation and they don't get it. Now they got to go back to the bank and get the check cut back to them, and it's
Yeah.
more of a hassle issue.
But that's only for 30 days under, right?
For less than 30 days to settlement, then we require in the agreement of sale, it even says it has to be required to be certified, and that's just for clearing purposes. We don't want to run into an issue where someone writes a personal check and we're 20 days away from settlement, and then it goes to get processed and it takes 5 days for it to get processed in the real estate office, and then they go and put it to the bank, and if somebody just doesn't clear before settlement, when the broker has to write the check back out to the title company, we want to make sure that we have the money in hand to be able to pass it through to settlement.
Got it. Thanks.
So back to presenting. Presenting it's not, I not just send the email, but I've typically already had several conversations with a listing agent before I send that email, and then I'm have the list of attachments, and I ask them to please acknowledge receipt. So I mean, Colby just had this happen to her yesterday. She submitted several offers over the weekend, and one of them, she's following up with the agent. She's like, just confirm you got my offer. And he's like, got back to her. He's like, no, I haven't seen anything. So make sure that you, at very minimum, you do some kind of accountability that the listing agent acknowledges that they've received the offer, whether it's asking them to, in the email, to write back that they've received it. I will do that, ask them to email back acknowledging receipt. And I also do a phone call because I want to verbally present to the listing agent, because I can get some feedback from them before they ever even present it to the seller. And then if it's contingent upon financing, we have set up with all of the lender partners that we work with, where we have a strategy in place for every offer that we put in using our lenders, where the lender is copied on that email that's being for the offer presentation. And they already know that I'm going to let them know once I've had the conversation with the listing agent and it's been presented, that now they're up to bat and they have to call that listing agent and introduce themselves if they don't already know the listing agent, and explain a little bit of background about the buyer's financial ability to qualify for the loan, so that we're kind of partnering up and trying to ease any concerns of any risk of getting the settlement with our client, and trying to show that we're very organized and we're going to be very easy to work with throughout the process. So, we've gotten offers accepted for buyers in the past that weren't necessarily the highest offer, but the agent knew us and knew how we operate, and knew how good of a transaction was going to be, and compared to a competing offer that they knew it was going to be a different direction in dealing with that agent, and had told their clients, here's what you can expect when you do a transaction with Colby. Here's what you're going to expect when you do a transaction with this one over here. They're so close in offer, even though theirs isn't as high, and they chose ours because they knew there's a better chance it was going to get to settlement and be a smooth process. So collaboration, back to being collaborative, it's very important. And what you establish with other agents, you ask any agent's been in the business for a minute and done a few transactions. There are oftentimes you'll get a reaction when you say an agent's name, and it's either going to be really positive, like I can't wait to do another transaction with that agent, or it's going to be like, I hope I never have to do a transaction with them again. You want to be on the former side of that, so you will be a collaborator when you're negotiating to create those relationships, because the relationships we have with ourselves in between as agents is as important, if not more important, than the relationship we have with clients. I'm not saying client relationships aren't important. I'm just saying it's really important that we all have positive experiences with each other in the process. Any questions so far on that? Okay. Page 18, nonverbal cues. This is really more for like, obviously when you're with somebody. And I think that where I use this in information gathering is really important when I'm like sitting at a listing presentation, or I'm showing, or a buyer representation, a buyer consult, or I'm showing houses. It's just watching how people are interacting with me and with each other, especially if there's, if it's a couple and there's, two decision makers. How do they come to decisions? Who has the most influence? Are they equal in their influence in their decision making? Is one stronger than the other as far as that is concerned? Watch when I'm showing houses, nonverbal cues really come into play when you know that they're going to make an offer on a house. They really like a house. I never will lead anybody through a house. I don't want to get too far off the subject here, but never lead anybody through a house when showing it. I'm there and allowing them to go through and staying close to answer questions. But I'm really I'm looking at the house to figure out if there's things I need to point out to them. But more importantly, I'm watching them and how they react to it. If they're going through and they're not even paying attention to it, and it's not even getting interest, I know nothing's going to happen. But if they're like walking in and like having that kind of reaction, that we need to spend a little bit more time here and then talk about how they're feeling about the house and their level of interest. Counter tactics. Okay, positioning page. I don't know if you guys have the manual or not. Let me see if I can pull something good out of here for us to talk about. I'm not really going to go in. I'd rather talk about more kind of real life scenarios. Anybody done anything recently or have anything going on right now where you had a hard time, or even you had a win with trying to figure out something unique to add to a position in presenting an offer and or countering an offer? And buyer, I know you got a story for me.
I can only offer my personal experience from just buying a house with my husband, but we actually weren't the top offer. But the couple were both military and they saw that it was a VA loan. So they kind of wanted it to go to us. And the situation was that the one that was higher had an escalation clause that was up to like 605 and we were at 570. So as opposed to like offering more money, which would still bump their escalation clause, because it was only by $2,500. We offered to pay the transfer tax for them, which was $5,700. So in doing that, we technically beat their offer and they were able to go with us instead of the other.
So a couple things I heard there. One is the principle of sameness. There's several principles in, and this is all coming from my certified negotiation expert classes. The principle of sameness. It's a really powerful tool to use in negotiating, but be very careful with it also. In that you don't want to. You want to recognize a common interest. And not necessarily a common who you are, because you don't want to have somebody put in a position to feel like they chose them because they are this and we are not, or you don't want someone to be put in a position that they didn't choose us because we're this and they're not. But the sameness principle with the VA scenario there, that's a very common one. I run into that all the time. Military service is a big, powerful thing, and it's a very important thing, and people really respect that. And if you have a veteran on one side and a veteran on another side, it's good to try and acknowledge that and let that connection of sameness come into play. I use sameness a lot when like with listing appointments, listing presentations. If I'm walking through the house with them and I see they've got, 2 sets of golf clubs that are, not from 30 years ago in there, but obviously someone's doing it. I'm an avid golfer, so I'll just get into that conversation. It's just a principle of sameness, and it's a tactic to have conversation going where we're not on, here's what you need to do to your house, here's what it's worth, here's what I charge. It's that making a connection with somebody so that they feel comfortable with you, and that they'll choose to do business with you at that point. All right, I'm kind of flying through. Like I said, I don't follow these plans too terribly well, but
I just have a question for Lauren. So she knows exactly what's the other offer price is. And that's
they
not the
apparently
offer
told
agent.
our agent what it was.
Oh.
I don't know if it was before or after. I think it was after we decided to do the pay their transfer tax. So at that point, they already knew they were going with us, and I guess at that point they were comfortable saying like the other offer was escalation up to 605. Once it had been decided, which I think that's okay, right?
And I'm just saying that not.
No, I'm asking.
yeah. So it's okay if directed by the seller.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Okay.
We got to keep that in mind as a listing agent. Anything that you say to a buyer's agent is the same as the seller talking to the buyer. And you need to make sure that, there's not conversation going on that a seller would not be willing to share that information with the buyer. Some tactics to talk about, which I think are appropriate for us to talk about in this class and appropriate for this market where it's a challenge for buyers agents. Escalation clauses, you just brought that up, and it was brought up in the video. I like escalation clauses. I think they're a very powerful tool. I think that they need to be used properly in that and combined with several other tactics. First and foremost, if I get an escalation clause on one of our listings and it's like, we'll pay $500 more, or $1,000 more, even $2,500 more, I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really differentiate you other than a little bit more in price. How do your other terms compare? Are you doing inspections and another is not? Are you doing, is your financing, is based on your BFI, is your debt to income ratio at a 41.8% and the other one is at a 19%. There's a lot more involved. If you're going to use an escalation clause, my point is make it worthwhile. $5,000, 7,500, something big number, so that if there's other terms that they're comparing to offer that you would beat out by enacting the escalation clause, it's not going to hurt you if you're not quite as good in those other terms, if there's a much bigger number there. I also really like the tactic of and combining escalation clauses with things like appraisal gap coverages. Okay. We had the one I talked about where they paid 60 grand over the asking price. They also said the property has to appraise for 20 grand less than what the minimum, at least 20,000 less than what the sale price is, in order to, and they'll still buy the property. They'll make up the difference in cash. That's a really powerful thing right now, because the market is outpacing the data for appraisers to be able to maintain and keep up with what's going on with appreciation. So if you can minimize risk of the deal falling apart because it didn't appraise, that's going to go a long way. Combined with that, part of that tactic is what you mentioned, Lauren, about paying transfer tax. That's a great way, especially if you're getting into 500,000 plus. Man, that's $5,000 more in value that you're offering without having to add it to the sale price, without having to increase the appraisal value by that $5,000. So that's a really, I love that tactic of paying the transfer tax. I've even seen offers out there where the buyer is offering to pay their buyer's agent side of the commission. And that way the seller can keep that money in their, as far as their net proceeds are going. So it raised the value of their offer by that percentage, whatever it may be, to set them aside and reduce risk. Is all about risk from contract to close. So you got to identify what they are and minimize them the best that you can, or make terms offered that will minimize them for a seller.
Some of the other stuff you've mentioned about like the financing of the buyer, how much of that is public information? Because you're saying, oh, you can just call their lender and, pry it out of them. But how is that, like, I didn't even know that would be legal to, for them to release all those details, like their credit score and stuff like that.
Well, oftentimes they will, I typically won't get a credit report. I won't get anything in writing, but oftentimes I will get a response like they have excellent credit, or their credit is over 750, or I'll get a feel for what it is. And it's not a guarantee, but it adds to that confidence of we're going to minimize our risk in getting from contract to close. From the debt to income ratio, that's the whole reason that we ask for a BFI.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sole reason I want to see a BFI when I'm representing a seller. Is I want to see what's their income, what debts are they disclosing, and it's not guaranteed. They're not showing me a pay stub. They're not showing me a credit report that lists what their obligations are. But with some very simple math, it doesn't take long to calculate what their gross monthly income is, and then calculate out what their payment's going to be and figure out what their front end debt to income ratio is. And, conventional loans don't typically want to be more than 42% debt to income ratio. And the lower that is, the better, the easier the underwriting is going to be for it. So if I get someone with a 18% debt to income ratio, that's a slam dunk all day long. If they got good credit, they're going to get approved, anywhere they want. But if I do it and it's like 47%, now, there's a lot more risk, does
it matter if they're already like pre-approved though, and they already, like you said, they're just waiting to fill in the house with the amount? Do you really need to get into the
if a lender,
nitty-gritty?
if a lender tells me, and especially if it's a lender that I know, if a lender tells me that, look, we've already run them through underwriting, they are approved as buyer for X amount of payment, and we just have to plug the property in, meaning they have to have the agreement of sale for the underwriter, they've got to get an appraisal done, they've got to get title insurance. They just have to plug the property in. That's different than, keep in mind that most of the time when you see a pre-approval, you read into it and see how much information is really on there, because it oftentimes will say things like verified credit. So they've run the credit. Great. We at least want to know that. It may say things like assets, income, and liabilities as provided by the borrower. So that just means the only level they've gotten to at that point is that they've had a phone conversation with the lender saying, I make X amount of money, I have this payment, car payment of this, and I have this payment of this. The lender hasn't verified any of those things, hasn't collected asset statements, hasn't collected pay stubs, hasn't collected the data to confirm it. So that's why I like to back it up with my own calculations to make sure that it's in line with what would be approvable if they can prove all of those things with the documentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. We got a few more minutes left in our hour here, so just keep opening it up here to any questions, whether it's about negotiating or just anything going on right now. I'm more than happy to provide an opinion.
Hey, Colby, I'm having bad internet connection, so if you can't hear me, I'll just shoot you a message. Can you talk about your process after you get agreement of the deal, so you're under contract? I'm running into challenges where my clients aren't understanding that there's things they can and cannot do through the escrow period? And are you guys formally sending them something like on paper of do not do these things, or are you verbally just communicating those and then reminding them every time you speak with them?
So two questions. Representing a buyer in this case?
This case, yes.
And what are the types of things you're talking about, do's and do nots?
Like the 101s, like don't change your job, or if you do, let me know immediately. Don't go find another lender without communicating with me that you're going to go find another lender. Just the 101s and things we've reviewed, but I'm finding that maybe it's a little bit too much information as we review it for them to comprehend, and that I probably need to put some things on paper like one cheaters and get those out to them.
Yeah, so my experience and recommendation on that is that it's really the timing in which you're educating them on those things. I would stay away from educating them for the first time when you're doing a contract or you just went under contract. I would educate them at the buyer consultation before they ever look at a house. And then it's a simple reminder to them, hey, remember the things we talked about before we even started looking at a house? Don't forget any major decisions that have anything to do with finances. Talk to me and talk to the lender before you make that decision. Don't go lease a new car. You know, don't go take a Raymore and Flanagan credit card out and charge up 50 grand worth of furniture for your new house before we get the final approval on your mortgage. Not saying that they wouldn't qualify, that'll affect it, but everything has some effect or another. And the primary goal here is getting you into the house. So it's really important that you follow our guidance.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What's the most amount of offers anybody's written for one buyer until they got a house, or they still are looking for a house at this point?
Can you say the question again? I'm sorry.
What's the most amount of offers that you've written for a single client?
Oh, single clients. I'm still new, not that much now.
I have written 5. This is Jojan Bosco so far. 5.
Our number right now on our team is 8 for one individual client who's still looking for a house, by the way.
Colby, maybe I'll ask the question. I've been hearing, one Lauren was mentioning about offering the seller side transfer fee.
Mm-hmm.
Take the VA loan out of the equation. Let's assume it's a conventional. How does that make price wise? Because I'm a numbers guy. I try to do the number. It does. If somebody is offering 15,000 more and somebody else is offering a $5,700 will cover the transfer tax, how is a number wise it makes sense for a seller?
Well, it's not. I'm not saying that if it's a 570 house and you're paying the transfer tax, it's $5,700 more, and whatever that offer is, that would compete with something that's 15 grand more necessarily from a net number. It's just it's a great tool to use to
with other.
It's a great tool to use to increase the net number to the seller without increasing the sale price, which increasing the sale price means you're increasing the amount of mortgage if they're getting financing. It means it has to appraise for that 1% more. Pennsylvania state transfer tax 2% in most cases, some places a little higher. It's a tool to use to increase the net and reduce the risk of getting the settlement from an appraisal standpoint.
So it is, we are like you have mentioned, you have to use with all other tools, not just that one to negotiate.
Correct.
Yes, okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Serena, happy to share that email format with you. No problem.
Thank you.
Time for one more question if anybody has one.
Do you mind sharing it with the group, Colby?
Yeah,
Or at
absolutely.
least add me to the distribution.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll get it over to Lisa and have her send it out to everybody. All right, well, I hope that was helpful.
Very.
Hopefully you learned at least one little new thing today.
Yeah. Thank you.
I am always available, always around, as part of my commitment to leadership here in the office. I'm also doctor on call, but I don't have to be the doctor on call. If anything comes up with anybody in a transaction, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
Thanks, Colby.
You're welcome. Have a great day.